Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eric and welcome to another Bloomberg Terminal video. This is part 3 of my Bloomberg Terminal series where I cover some of the most used functions on the Bloomberg Terminal or Bloomberg Professional service. Today I've got a number of different functions that as far as I'm aware, have not covered in my previous two videos. I recognize that there might be some overlap in some of these functions. But again, I'm pretty sure I have not covered them before. And really, the goal for making this video was these were a bunch of functions that I left out of the previous two videos, so it's an addendum, if you will, to part 1 and part 2. And these particular functions are sort of coming from a buy-side equity analyst player role in the Bloomberg terminal. So if you're a credit analyst, you might not find, you know, much use in this video, but we'll go over some interesting functions. Before I do, I want to show you how I compiled this function list, and I did so by going to the user function here in Bloomberg, and it will provide you with functions for your particular workflow. Now, mine by default is equity derivatives trader. However, you can modify this by going to 99 and choosing from any of these positions. And what will happen is the Bloomberg terminal will recommend to you related functions. So for example, if I put in economist role, well, you'll see a bunch of functions here that relate to what an economist might do. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's start with a function that we have not used before, and this is COUN, and this is the country region guide, which gives you an overview of a country's financial markets. So when I pull up this screen, and this is a great screen to have open at the start of the day, you can see the major indices here and the key rates, 2 through 10 year notes, and the Euro to USD, and then some top headlines. You can see yield curves are graphed here, and we'll take you through that very quickly before we move on to the next function. And of course, you have economic data, risk data, and a general profile. Now, of course, if you're based in the United States will come up, but I can pull up a number of other countries and get data. So you see now I have information on the DAX. So now, while we're on the topic of the economy, let's go to ECFC. And ECFC are upcoming economic forecasts. This is very useful because it does provide you with GDP estimates 3 years out, or 2 years out, really. You can see here real GDP expected negative 5.7. Obviously, this has everything to do with coronavirus. So I'll scroll through here so you can take a look. And if you're looking for quick economic forecasts, this is the place to go. Similar, we have ECSU, and this is the Economic Surprise Monitor, and this will basically allow you to analyze economic estimates, actuals, and historical releases. So you can see we had initial jobless claims and so forth. And it'll also provide you with a market reaction to that release. And using that information, you can observe certain trends. So for instance, if I take my initial jobless claims, I click on the reaction, it'll bring you to a chart here. Now, while we're on the topic of economics, let's go to ECTR. And ECTR is a trade flow monitor. And this is a really cool function because it will provide you with information on base country and its trading partners. So you can see our two biggest trading partners here are Mexico and China, with total trade. This is in millions, of course. But if I switch the country, so for instance, if I decide that I'm going to type in the United Kingdom, we can see, well, the UK's top trading partner is the United States. No surprise there. Let's take a look at the United Arab Emirates. Biggest trading partner being China. And we'll do one more. We'll say India. So India's top trading partner is the United States, and we'll just click on it, and you can see it'll set that up as the base country. So this is very interesting, being able to take a look at trade flows. Now, the next function I want to take a look at sort of deviates from economics. We're going to be looking more at securities now. That's sort of the bread and butter of this video. And the first function we're going to play with is called most, and this is most active securities. So if you want to look at the market and see, okay, which particular securities are moving today, well, this is where you want to go. And our number one is Hertz today, down 80%. Obviously, Hertz declaring bankruptcy, so it's no surprise that it's down by that much. Now, if I want to sort of sort this by actually, it's not letting me sort by that, but we can just go to the change up and change down. So you can see AIXN, Life AIXN Life International. I'm afraid to say I don't know this firm, but it will show you that it's up 58.46%. And some of the losers today, besides Hertz, include FGL Holdings. Again, I've never heard of that. Sigma Broadband, and you'll see that there's a heat monitor near each ticker, which shows you whether or not it's sort of a news-related catalyst that's causing the price movement. So let me click through some of these here, and you'll be able to take a look. 52-week highs and lows. And one of the great things is that you can sort of filter this and get very specific. So this is showing just one trading day of data, but you can, adjust the market cap. So if I wanted to do companies that are worth over 50 billion, well, this is going to show us names that we've heard of. So no companies made 52-week lows today, but 9 companies did make 52-week highs today, of which include Nvidia, Shopify, PayPal, and Adobe. Great, so let's move on. Our next function is called MBTR, and MBTR is the block trade recap. And this will allow you to monitor for institutional block trades. And by default, it will display internationally. And but you can filter this down, to your local country. So what I'm going to do is let's just say the value of the block trade is $500,000. And actually, you know what? This is not going to show me anything because the market is closed right now. So let me go back to 1 p.m. See if that makes a difference at all. Well, that's a bummer. I thought we'd be able to see some data here. If you do come here during market hours, you will be able to see a bunch of block trades. So it's definitely a bummer I can't show you that, but it will show you the ticker, obviously, what the size of the position was, and the value, and you'll be able to analyze what the price movement was as a result of that block trade. So I'm very sorry I couldn't show you that. Let me try isolating this to the United States and see if anything comes up. No. That's unfortunate. Well, okay. Let's move on then. We're going to go to RRG. And this is the relative rotation graph. And this is basically a visualization of the strength of a portfolio relative to an index. So if you take a look here, and you know, a lot of these functions are not something you would use every day, but if you're a portfolio analyst or something like that, you certainly would find use in this. But I'm just trying to give you an overview of these functions if you ever think you might need them. And by the way, all of these functions will be listed in the description of this video. So I'm clicking through here just so you can take a look. And let's move on to SI. And SI is a function that I personally use quite a lot, and this will give you a short interest on a particular security. Obviously, we can't pull up short interest on an index, so we can choose a stock. And one of the stocks I think we should look at for short interest is Royal Caribbean, because um, it's pretty heavily shorted right now, particularly as the price has fallen as a result of coronavirus. So you can see that 14.96% of the float is estimated to be short sellers or short sold shares, with a change of short interest of 2.49 million shares. And this is between these date periods here. So we'll pull up another stock just so you can take a look, and we'll say Apple. And just under 1% of the float for Apple is considered to be short. And, you know, that's no surprise. I mean, it's Apple. It's probably not wise to bet against the company. Similar to SI, we have SIA, which is a short interest analysis. So this will kind of let you take a look at different sectors and the change in short interest in those sectors. So for instance, you can see in financials, um, there's been pretty considerable positive change. So I'll click on diversified financials, mortgage real estate, mortgage REITs, and you can go through here at your leisure and take a look. Short interest, you know, obviously you can get this information online, but having it centralized in Bloomberg makes things, you know, all the more simpler for you as an analyst or a trader or whatever it is that your role is, and having it all in one program package is convenient. So now that we've taken a look at that, I want to go to CRYP, CRYP, and this is the cryptocurrency monitor. Cryptocurrencies have pretty much blown up over the past few years. They've become pretty heavily traded speculative instruments, Bitcoin being the number one, and Bloomberg has incorporated this. They've recognized that and they've incorporated it. So, you know, you can see live trading prices for cryptos. And if I click on Bitcoin, it will provide you with the various exchanges and the prices at those exchanges. You know, as I'm sitting here looking at these prices, um, I wonder how much arbitrage is going on. Um, you know, what's stopping someone from buying on Kraken and selling on Exmo, pretty much risk-free? Admittedly, I don't know very much about cryptocurrencies, so I'm sure there's a good reason for these prices not being very tight, but maybe someone can explain it to me. Let's move on. Let's go to DVD. And this does not have anything to do with movies. This is the dividend split summary. If you're looking for information on a company's dividend payments, this is the place to find it. We can see that Apple's 12-month yield is just under 1%. And here are various growth rates. So I know a lot of people who might be watching this video are students who are working to analyze securities, and one of the things you want to know, especially if you're using a DDM valuation model, is dividend growth rate. 10.15% in the case of Apple, and it will show you the X dates and record payment dates, etc., etc. Similar is BDVD. Oh, wrong field. And this is the Bloomberg dividend screen. It's quite similar, actually. But this is interesting in that you can see projected dividends. And you can see that the projected 3-year growth, 6.21, projected 12-month div yield, 1.05. Now, let me just see if the previous function had that information. They're very slightly different. And we can take a look at the dividend health. And let's move on. Let's go to WATC, WATC, which is watchlist analytics. So this gives you some metrics related to, in this case, the S&P 500. You can see the year-to-date total return of certain securities in the S&P. NVIDIA in this case has returned 53.5, which is monumental, 32.7 for Netflix, and obviously this will, show negative returns as well. So let's see who the biggest loser is, and that would be Norwegian, Carnival, United, Royal, American, all transport slash cruising companies. No surprise with coronavirus. And we can take a look at returns. We'll just click through some of these tabs so you can take a look at some of the options that are available to you. You can see Occidental's year-to-date volatility 161%, Norwegian at 179%. Let's click over to valuation. And this is showing our price multiples. Twitter trading at a 74.6 times. So this is very useful information to have right in front of you, especially if you're putting together a report for school or a report for your morning meeting or whatever the case may be. Let me just click through so you can take a look. And if you ever wonder what any of these things are, Bloomberg has done a very good job at explaining each of the columns. I mean, you can just read through them. You can see this is sorted here by debt to EBITDA. And there's even a tab for technicals based on the RSI, the moving averages, etc. Okay, let's take a look at MODL. And MODL will basically allow you to analyze deep estimates, and you can even request models from certain sell-side analysts. Obviously, we're not going to see models for S&P because, well, it's not a security. So I'll pull up Apple, for instance. And this is interesting because you'll see that on this particular page, you can download the financial models of certain analysts. So Gene Munster, who is at Loop Ventures, I believe. Oh, yes, he is at Loop Ventures. You can download the Excel model that he used. I'm not going to do it um, because it is proprietary. I don't want to get in trouble for sharing something that I shouldn't. So, but the option's available to you. So it'll let you download the Excel, and you can play with it yourself. Um, but not all analysts release their financial models. Just something to note. As you can see, only one has released for Apple. And similar to this, since we're talking about Excel, kind of reminds me, we can pull up XLTP, which is the Bloomberg Excel template library, and you have uh, about 315 actually different templates that you can use in your analysis and in your models. So, for instance, if you're a trader, there are specific models that you can use. And they all connect to Bloomberg, obviously, so you just type in the ticker and it populates the information. If you are a buy-side analyst, well, there are some templates that you can use. So, very useful. Thomson Reuters Icon, or Refinitiv Icon, now also has a template library, not as elaborate or as in-depth as Bloomberg's, that's for sure. Let's take a look at OWN. And this is not Oprah's network here. This is the ownership summary function. And this will provide you with, ownership summary of a particular security. So for instance, we have Apple showing here because it is the default security that I loaded. You can see that percent of shares held by institutions, 66.45% as of 5/24, and so forth. So, and you can click on these items for more information. Take a look at a historical chart of that data, and so forth. We can also take a look at insider transactions by company management, and you can click on these little blips here for more information. Obviously, Tim Cook is working some transactions here back in August. So be sure to take a look at this when you are at your terminal. And we can see that Vanguard owns quite a few shares, and then Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, also a major investor. HDS is our next function, and this is the security ownership. It's quite similar. Obviously, Apple loaded here, and it looks like it's populating some data right now. We can see the various position sizes. So these are obviously incredible position sizes. I mean, this is just unfathomable. And you can see various changes. You can see the addition of 7.4 million shares. And total position 336.7 million. And I'm clicking through some of these functions just because I'm interested in what they might display. Okay. Because, a lot of times I don't actually look through a lot of these items. Once you've found the functions that work for you, you kind of stick to them. You don't explore very much. So when I make these videos is actually when I, really get deep into this. And as I mentioned before, there are tens of thousands of different functions available on the Bloomberg. I think it's almost impossible to get through all of them, even during the course of your career. Um, so we've just looked at HDS. The next one I want to look at is RMAP. And RMAP is pretty neat because it will basically give you an overview of a company's market and industry relationships. And again, we have Apple here, and I'll just let you take a look at these. Kind of point my cursor here. I mean, if you want to look cool, maybe you can have this screen up. I'll just change the security here. So it's your little command center for taking a look at relationships in the market. Next one we're going to use is EQRV. EQRV is the equity relative valuation function. And this will allow you to analyze a stock's relative valuation to its peers. So we have Tesla loaded in here, and obviously peers being GM, Ford, Fiat, Chrysler, and we can see the 2-year correlation coefficient. So this is very useful if you want to be running mathematical models, whatever your analysis involves. This is useful information to incorporate for sure. So this is definitely a stats nerd's dream. Let's pull up Apple again so we can take a look at a different company in the same function. And we'll pull up the versus comps tab here. Obviously, Samsung and HTC being big competitors of the firm. And now we'll take a look at AQR, which I probably should have put earlier in the set, but it's sort of similar to the MBTR function, but I hope that we at least get some data populated, and we do, which is great. So you can see the Apple is loaded here. So between 4 a.m. and when I'm recording this video, this will provide us with trades that had the largest impact. So we can see an MOC trade here for almost 2.7 million shares at 316.73. So if you want to take a look at block trades, well, you can do it right here. And this will let you isolate it by security. Sometimes it does take a few minutes to load in, but there you go. I think you understand where this is going. I don't want to spend too much time on it. So for the last 3 functions, as I wrap this up, these are kind of interesting for me in particular. So the first one I'm going to go to is HFS, which is the hedge fund search. So this is useful if you are an accredited investor and want to put money to work in a fund or fund of funds. This will basically get you some information on hedge funds out there. So you can see that there's 713 matching funds. I do not have all privileges assigned, so those are not by all means every fund that exists. But we can see various funds and the strategies they employ and also their returns. So if we sort this by year to date, we can see that the Waypoint All Weather Alternative Fund has done quite dismally versus the Structura Long Short Global Fund has a year-to-date return of 774.6%, and I've just got to look at it. So it's an open-end fund incorporated in Luxembourg. The fund's objective is to outperform capitalized EONIA index over the investment horizon of 5 years. Okay, so it's very interesting that they provide you with a nice description of it in case you want to learn more. And while we're talking about funds, let's pull up IS, which is the investor search. So, it kind of poses a question to you. What types of investors are you searching for? And there's some options that you can see here. This is hedge fund managers holding pure stocks, excluding holders of that. So if I click on that, just to show you an example, you see that there's over 1,200 matches, and it's working on loading them in right now. And here we go. We can see that Renaissance Technologies, Rentec, arguably one of the most profitable hedge funds in history, comes in at number one with a market value of almost 119 billion. And these are in equity assets, and that actually segues me into my next function, which is IP. So let's do that. Let's go to IP. So led me right there. So this is one of my favorite functions on the terminal, and IP will basically kind of scan the fund's 13F filings and publish for you the holdings. I mean, you can easily get 13F data on a website like whalewisdom.com, I believe, but having it here is quite useful, and having it kind of drawn out by sector and so forth is kind of interesting. So you can see just how over the past few years in which sectors that Renaissance has put their money to work based on their 13F, of course. So this is by no means all of their positions. And then if you want to take a look at holdings, well, here you go. Bristol Myers Squibb, Palo Alto Networks, Walmart, etc. Now, this function here, the contacts function, is well, actually, before I get to contacts, I also do want to mention that you do have pretty great filters here, so you can see which positions they've increased or decreased, which are new buys, and which positions they sold out of. So let's look up at different funds. We'll look up Bill Ackman's Pershing Square. And we can see that there's 8% new buys. So if we click that, it will show us that he's built a position in Starbucks, Blackstone, and Park Hotels. So that's very interesting. So let me get back to what I was saying. There is a function here, or a tab called Contacts, and this is very useful if you need to get a hold of someone at a firm. Most of their traders and analysts are on Bloomberg, so I'm not going to click it because I don't want to reveal their names, but typically what I'll do is I'll come into Contacts, look for the person, and you can IB them, or you can message them right from that tab, which is very cool. So I'm looking at the timer here, and I've gone on for about 34 minutes so far, so I think at this point in time it is probably best for me to end this video. I may do more of these in the future. I'm not sure. Someone did ask for a video on the Bloomberg Launchpad, which I am very strongly considering. But if you like these videos, let me know. If there's anything specific that you want to see, let me know as well. I think rather than just show functions in the future, what I might do is sort of take you through flow of what an equity analyst or an equity trader might do during a day at work. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great night, and I hope you stay safe.